Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you coming, especially on a Friday at this time. I know people are leaving, and appreciate the people who are here. I have a lot to cover, but I gave this talk, a similar talk to this in 2019, and the reason I want to give this again, because a lot of the landscape has changed since 2019 in the game business. And so I want to go over some other things that I think you need to have, some other tool sets you need to look at when you want to, when you get into the game industry. How many people are in the game industry now? Excellent. How many people are looking to get into the game industry? Okay, good, good. What I'm going to do in this presentation is, first, I've been in the games business for 30 years, almost 30 years now, and it's been a fantastic journey for me. So everything I say here, there's maybe some, I wouldn't say negative, but I want to have eye-opening discussion with you guys of what it is like to be a game developer and how to survive in this business, because it's somewhat tough, especially if you've seen what happened recently. I started 3 studios, and I'm now on my 4th one. I started a Sony studio, Indy, that later got into BioWare Austin, and to Bethesda Studio Battlecry, then later became Bethesda Game Studios, and then my last studio, which I'm doing now, is called T-0. So I have a lot of experience about not only working, because I work for Sony Electronic Arts and Bethesda, and it gave me a great understanding of what the game industry is like to work in, especially as long as I have. So I wanted to share and give back. Today, we're just going to go over what I call the reality check. It's kind of give you an idea, especially people who are into this, who are getting into this business, what you're getting into. And then I'm going to talk about something I think is very relevant today, is how to survive a layoff, because I think that's part of it. Now, the first 15 minutes will be dedicated to that. The next big part of the presentation will be how to fit in. You're either going to start working for a new company, or you are at a new company, or you are a new person going into a new studio. And then how to be successful, like how do you grow your career while you're in the gaming industry? And then we'll have a Q&A session. The reality check here in this section is kind of like giving everyone who's wanting to get into this business a little eye-opener of what it's like to be a game developer. Before I go into that part of it, I want to say that I had the best experience of my life being a game developer. I love building games people play. I like seeing people play my games. I love hearing people sometimes talk about my games. There's always there to deal with, the community. But one of the biggest things that I learned is there's nothing like this moment, is when you walk out on New Yorker, I was born in New York, you walk down Times Square and see your game in lights. That is an amazing, amazing feeling. And that's what makes it all worth it, to be honest with you. When you see it on the shelf, hear people talk about it on the Amazon reviews, talk about it in your forums and Discord, and you are part of it. That's what makes this industry great. That's the great highlights of this industry to me, is launching a product. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. But one thing I will say to you that is a true in our business is change is inevitable. We are on a platform that changes all the time. Whether it's console, mobile, social, VR, AR, whatever you want to talk it, it's changing all the time. So we don't have a constant base like film or video does, like series. Our technology behind us is changing, allowing us having more incredible abilities to build great player experiences. But again, because of that change, there's always when change occurs, there's always things, change management that you have to go through, right? And so you got to get used to that. This is not a stable business. So if you want stability, I wouldn't come to this to be a game developer. One of the biggest things about when you first come on board to a game company, there is very little onboarding that goes on. The very basics onboarding goes on in most companies. They kind of tell you what you're going to do. They give you a handbook to read. They tell you, how to log into your account from an IT perspective, how to get your equipment and things like that. Very little training goes on in our business. Very little mentoring. And if the mentoring is done, it's not done very, very well. I mean, there are instances of studios doing a better job at this, but in general, in my experience, it has been lacking. Career counseling is almost non-existent. Why I put a ship wheel on this? It's up to you to steer yourself in this industry. You have to be a self-starter if you want to be in this industry and survive. You have to guide yourself and steer yourself to what you want to do, what you're passionate about, by the way. The other thing about this industry is it's very stressful. And lots of things can happen in industries that makes it stressful. You have deadlines to meet. Sometimes, and this has happened many times in our industry, you're crunched to make those deadlines. And sometimes those deadlines aren't very realistic. They cause trouble with your family life. A lot of my friends who were married are divorced. I'd say about 70% of my people I know, coworkers and things like that, have been divorced through game development. It's just a reality. Things are getting better, quality of life, balance of life. Work-life balance is a big thing. It's something that I would say if you're going to look for a job or at a studio, make sure that they have a good work-life balance. They're not constantly crunching. And a lot of studios do that, even today. It's tough. It's tough on you. It's tough on your family. One of the things that I always found very interesting in our business is, this is the food chain, so to speak. When anything happens, usually the execs are the last to leave, engineers are the second, designers, and then so on. QA is always at the bottom, which, by the way, bothers me. QA is so important, but it's always treated as a second-class citizen in a lot of companies, and unfortunately. And what bothers me more than anything of this list is designers aren't treated as the number one thing that a company should always try to keep, maintain, and pretty much do anything to not have them leave. Designers are the reason why games are fun. They are the fun. They are the engagement. They are the player experience people. But yet they're not seen in the hierarchy. They're third tier, which really blows my mind. Now, the good news is a lot of that is changing recently, where I think publishers and studios realize that without a fun game, you can't sell anything, right? So I say in the past 5 to 6 years, that's kind of changed, but it still still exists this way in a lot of publishing, a lot of companies. The other thing is, I looked at forming these studios. The BioWare Austin studio, we had 450 people. I got to see a lot of resumes growing these studios from 7 people to 450 people, and from 7 to 125, 7 to 125. I've seen a lot of resumes come through. What I've seen is basically the lifespan of a developer is about 3 years at a company. And generally, you have 90% chance of being laid off in 5 years. This leads to the state of industry today, after the pandemic. The state of industry today, as you've seen with the massive layoffs that have happened in 23 and 24, is a market adjustment. Basically, what happened in the studios had this huge boom during this pandemic. Hired crazy. Investors came in and started building studios and hiring people away from the publishers. And so there's a resource shortage that happened during the pandemic. And what happened was, salaries increased exponentially. And what that caused is our burn rate go up by 40% since 2020, average. That's huge. And if you're looking at products that take 3 to 5 years to build, that's a lot of money. And so I call it pandemic bloat. And so what's happening now is that's unrealistic to think that sales and everything else is going to continue like that. Even though the game industry had a good year last year, the issue is they have a massive burn rate that they have to hold. So what's the easiest thing to do in a lot of companies? Well, lay off. Hire them cheaper later. And so that is what's going on in the state of industry today. It's just adjusting itself. It will get back to 2019 very shortly and start growing again. So this is a temporary blip. Now, because of what happened, and because of that 90% probability, I really wanted to go into how to survive a layoff. Because again, majority of anybody here, the likelihood of being laid off is very high. One of the things I always talk about is be kind to yourself. It is very important to not blame yourself for why you're getting laid off. A lot of times it's out of your control. So realize that, be kind to yourself, take a break, chill out, and figure out what your next steps are. Don't be a victim. That's the worst thing you can do in our business, by the way. If you ever come and interview with anybody and you badmouth your former employer, you're pretty much done, guaranteed. Don't blame it on always look forward, by the way, once you get laid off. Don't look happened in the past. Look forward and figuring out what's your next thing that you want to do. What's your next journey going to be like, is my advice. The other big advice that I always tell people is take time to unpack your baggage because a lot of people run at 100 miles an hour at another company and suddenly you're at zero. You're still calculating what happened, why did it happen, and you have all these preconceived notions, or what I call PTSD, from other companies that affect you in your next company. They do. Trust me, I've been there. And sometimes I have to tell myself, it's not going to happen that way, but there's something in the back of my head where I'm cautiously optimistic that it will happen in a positive way. But there's something in the back of my head that pauses me and makes me take time to make a decision where I shouldn't have to worry about that. But again, unpack your baggage. Take time to find the right job. What I tell people to do is go Google Glassdoor, look at your companies you want to go to, look at the bios of the people that run your company, talk to people in the industry, always look for people to help you, by the way. Don't be afraid to ask your colleagues for advice. Be cautious about that. And by the way, you can get very panicky. Trust me, I've been there myself, where my runway is running out very soon. You have a family, this gets really hairy. But really take your time, because sometimes you don't want to get in a worse situation than you were before. Again, look for avenues to get help. I always tell people to go talk to your colleagues. Go talk to people you've networked in, or go to GDC and network and talk to people and figure out what your next direction is going to be, your next adventure. Update your resume. Keep it simple, short, concise. Have an executive summary of your skills and little gamography that you've done in the beginning. Very first thing you put on your resume, so people can look at it and get a quick glance at you, because there's hundreds of resumes people are looking at. You want yours to stand out. This is the most important thing. When you interview people, feel confident when you interview. Don't have your posture or the way you communicate through your body language is so critical during an interview. Even if you're on Zoom or Teams, you really need to be confident, be passionate. This is a real important one about what they do. Do your research about the company you're talking to and the people you're going to be talking to. They like that, by the way. I found lots of people who interviewed with me and didn't understand our core values. Oh, okay. Then you didn't really look at us very well. So that kind of effort. And be comfortable with being questioned, by the way. Some people get very nervous. Go have a friend practice with you. Trust me, it's worth it. And by the way, this is something that I always tell people is when you look at who you're going to interview with, stack rank them and do the first one. Try to do the first one you don't really care about first. This is an awful thing to say, and it's being recorded too. But do the first one that you really don't care about first, so that you don't blow the one you really want in the third lineup, really, is what I do. Practice interviewing. And what I always tell people to do, even if you're employed, go out and search around sometimes. It's actually not a bad thing to do for opportunities, especially if, they could be someone, for example, if a recruiter comes to you and says, we have this fantastic opportunity that you may not have at your current company. We love to interview for it. Go do it. That's what I tell people. Go do it. It's worth just exploring to see, number one, what your value is. And, what the opportunity is. It may be something that you would never get at your current employer, right? One of the things that I think is very important, they always tie this to severance or anything else they're giving you extra besides your normal payroll that they have to pay out by law. Get a labor lawyer to look at it before you sign it. They give you, I think, 20 days or something like that to have it reviewed. Please take the time to do that. It's well worth it. A lot of times when I do that, I've been laid off twice, by the way. I actually get better terms. So it's my advice to everyone is to do that. COBRA, please take COBRA. COBRA is insurance, health insurance. If you get laid off, please take COBRA right away. They say, well, you got 2 months. The problem is when your insurance lapses at the end of the month, it's done. You can't use that insurance anymore. Even though they say that you pretty much most doctors won't accept anything but cash until you get COBRA set up. So it takes a couple weeks to do. So I do it immediately while you still have insurance. Another thing is don't get discouraged. Look at where you are. Look at where you're going. Don't get discouraged because it is tough out there right now. And my advice is to keep a positive attitude as you move forward because people can detect that. Now, I'm going to talk about how to fit in. Let's say you got a new job. Let's say you're new to the industry, or you're new to a new role within because as you change your role, by the way, and grow in a company, you have to learn how to fit into the second tier. If you have a 3-tier system like execs, mid-management, and the people who do the work, you may get to the second tier. That's a whole different ballgame. Or going to the first tier is a different ballgame. It takes a different types of sets of things to fit in. So one of the things is determine the type of environment you're working in, whether it's in office, hybrid, or remote. They all have different requirements for fitting in, right? What I mean by that is if you're in a remote first studio, then you're going to have to put more effort into communicating than you have done before. Same thing with a little bit of hybrid too. And how you present yourself, how you're being more proactive. So the other thing about culture is some of them is top down that you worked at. I mean, everything comes from the top. Then some are bottoms up. And some are kind of in between, right? But the key is if it's top down, then you understand if you question somebody, you have to do it diplomatically, right? And you have to work cautiously for a political environment. If it's bottoms up, that's a little bit more freedom, a little bit more openness, a little bit more things to talk about. So you have to be careful about that from a culture point of view. There are different companies that are creative and different companies that are tech-driven. Now, creatives are great. Companies creatives like Blizzard. Tech-driven companies are more like Epic, right? So depending on the type of company you are, is the type of personality you want to fit in, whether you're a tech person or a creative person. And creative persons do well at tech companies, right? It's just that they're more tech-focused, so they hold tech as a higher priority than the creative side sometimes. Now, why is this important? It's called DNA matching. So if you don't do that, what happens is you are swimming upstream all the time. So either you adapt or not. And if you don't fit into companies, you don't become a positive, become a negative, things will happen, trust me. If you're seen as a negative person, that means you're not able, because you just don't understand how things work, you're not flourishing well in that environment, maybe you just got promoted and you're not doing very well. Sometimes people will help you out, hopefully that you work in an environment that will. And so you become a negative. You don't ever want to do that because what will happen is either you adapt or you leave on your own or by being fired, usually. So this is the most important section, is tips of being successful. One of the biggest things I think that's important that I have to talk about is hard skills are easy. When I say this, most people come in, they understand what they have to do from a programmer, from an artist. They have those skill sets, But one of the things that's always lacking, in my opinion, you always look at people, how did that person get to where they are when he really doesn't know how to do this certain thing very well, right? It's because they have very good soft skills. And soft skills, believe it or not, and when you get evaluated, and not just hard skills, but soft skills are actually important, especially for in today's world where if remote or hybrid situation exists, it's really how you communicate, how you proceed forward, if you're a self-starter. All this stuff is very important and more valuable. Of course, hard skills are important. They assume you have that. It's valuable in the sense of growing, right? This is how you grow in a company. If you're really good at what you do, that's fantastic. But if you have fantastic soft skills on top of that, you grow much faster than an organization, that I found out. Now, what does it mean by that? You'll be dealing with a lot of different personalities in the workplace. We have a very creative industry with very creative, quirky people. You will work with many different types, from people who have large egos to people who are very introverted to people who are not introverted, extroverted. So you have to learn how to get along with your teammates, right? And so one of the biggest things in soft skills that I talk about all the time is called emotional intelligence. It is really critical, as you've seen here, to be self-aware of who you are, how you treat people, understanding that when you screw up, you understand when you screw up, and that when you talk to someone, you can see it through their lens, right? And so we'll talk a little bit about each one of these sections that I break off when I talk about emotional intelligence, because this to me is really important. If you want to be successful in your career at a game company, if you have really good emotional intelligence, I've seen people accelerate very quickly. Adaptability is one of them, right? Accepting change, don't complain about it. Here it is, figure out how you're moving forward. You understand this is a good example. Is a lot of times when you're designing a game, you pivot because certain things don't work the way you want. Some of the things that you worked on get thrown out, put on the floor, just like any good film that gets edited. You ton on the floor, right? And so you have to be willing to accept that your baby is on the floor now, and they're moving on. And so that's important, to have that ability to understand that things do change in our business. Being collaborative. So not being a lone wolf is really important. Don't be in your shell. I'm introverted a little bit, believe it or not, I am. And I had to pull myself out of that. And collaboration is about communications. It's about working with others well. Work with your people well. And again, because you have different quirkiness in our industry of people you're working with, you have to learn how to meet halfway. You have to learn how to see through their lens. You have to learn how to work with them. And that could be challenging at times. Some people can rub you the wrong way just because they're seen as abrasive. And sometimes when I get to an abrasive person, I talk to them. Hopefully they become self-aware. If they don't, then that's where your manager comes in, right? And you talk to them about that. It's important, right, for your team. Your team is dysfunctional, your game won't do well. I dealt with a lot of very talented people that have large egos and are not self-aware. Those are very destructive people, and they're really hard to deal with. You will have those people when you're working for a company one time or another. Humility is good. Being self-aware is awesome. I don't mind someone with a big ego if they are self-aware, meaning that they understand, oh, you're right, I did that, that wasn't great, okay, I'll change my behavior. Meaning that gives them the ability to change your behavior. So if you're that way, humble pie is awesome, as I say, in this business. If you have that ability and not become, your ego stroked and have people receive you as a large ego, that's not a good thing in our business. Confidence is good, by the way, and that's why my next slide is confidence is good. It's always good to be confident, high confidence, but you have to balance that out sometimes, right? Accept that other people have really good ideas. Everyone can contribute. That's really important. This is the one I think that's most important for me is communications. And communications is the ability to understand, listen, and hear, and be able to talk to this individual and communicate, correspond with this person in a very compassionate and concise manner, right? So being concise is really, really important. I've seen people meander all over the place. We all know them. We all probably work with them. They can't ever get to the point, and you lose people's attention. And so what the most important thing I can recommend everyone is learning how to be concise, learning how to focus. Because if you do that, people will really appreciate that and see that, and you will grow in your company. One of the other big things that I think is important is this nonverbal communications that we talked about. I talked a little bit about it. They speak loudly. You can see people when they're pissed on teams. You can see people slump down. You can see people not pay attention because they're multitasking, because you see their eyes going all over the place. And you know they're multitasking, right? Everyone does. This nonverbal communications will hit you hard. And so it's very important to learn how to neutralize that form of body language, to become a positive. And by the way, trust me, I have been in many meetings where I've experienced what I call WTF moments, and I wanted to reach out and slap someone really hard with my hand, and I didn't. I just held it in, neutralized it. It's like anything, it's like you never, when you're angry, you want to send an IM or an email until you calm down, right? So it's really important for body language while you're talking, especially if you're hosting the meeting, to make sure that you neutralize that as much as possible. That helps a lot. That's a soft skill. It's really important, especially because, again, you work with a very opinionated, game developers are very opinionated, and so you need to understand how to see through their lens and how to neutralize your body language. One of the biggest things I will tell you is I've had different types of managers. I've had introverted managers, I have extroverted managers. Extroverted managers are easy to work with because they're always coming at you. They always talk to you. They always come and ask you how you're doing. Introverted managers, by the way, are people that don't come to you all the time, don't give you a really good counseling or mentoring, right? These are the people you want to try to pull out. Introverted people are awesome. They just don't want to confront. Introverted people don't like situations where stress and conflict can occur. And so the best way to deal with introverted people is to IM them, is to go out one-on-one with them, try to get to know them. But these are the type of people you will be dealing with. Now, I've dealt with managers that are extremely rational, really precise, very data-driven, very much, let's get to the problem. I've also dealt with the opposite. When you, as a person, whether you're in management track or individual contributor, if you're very emotional, people don't want to talk to you. People pull back from you. Now, there's passion. Passion's great. There's emotion, which is different. And so it's really important to make sure passion is good, but when you become very upset or very emotional, it really pulls, and then you don't think well when you're emotional, people see that. It doesn't reflect well on you, right? If you're dealing with a manager type that's very emotional, what I always try to do is diffuse it with asking a question. Why do you say that? What are you trying to get at? What's your goal, right? That diffuses it. And then it pulls that person back from being emotional sometimes. Sometimes they're very pissed because you missed a deadline, things aren't working out well on your team. You ask for advice, right? You try to turn that negative feeling that emotional person has into a positive. And that takes some diplomacy, by the way, to do. I've had a very emotional bosses that made my life a living hell at companies before. And sometimes they get to the point where you can't deal with it anymore. It's not worth the mental health, by the way, if you're dealing with a manager that's very emotional and very aggressive towards you. That's almost harassment. And so I always pull back and say, this is not worth it, and look elsewhere. But I always, before I do that, I always kind of work. I'm not a quitter. I always try to work. Rational people are awesome. They're the best managers I've ever worked with. But again, there's also a point of being too rational where they don't have the empathy sides of things I've dealt with before. And that's where you kind of help with that, right? Because sometimes people are very short with you and you take that personally. Don't. That's someone very logical, very, very much to the point. It's not personal a lot of times, right? So that's something you have to realize in the game business you'll deal with. Self-management. Self-management is what I talked about earlier. It's about self-control and self-regulation, right? That's what self-management is. It's your ability to regulate your emotions. It's really important to have self-management. There will be many times in the industry where I almost wanted to scream, where I've seen things like happen that I still can't believe happened in front of me in this games business. I still say, did that person really just say that? Yeah, and I'm just blown away. But I have to control myself. There are people in a team meeting, in a company meeting, who don't have very good self-management and ask those difficult questions that he or she didn't want to be asked. And you can see immediately putting that person on the spotlight. That person has just had their expiration date moved up, is what happens when you're in that situation. But it's really important to regulate that. And again, regulate it in a productive way. Ask questions, diffuse it, right? Let's talk about that. The one way to diffuse it is you're moderating a Teams meeting. Let's talk about that offline. Great point. Let's just move that offline out of the meeting. That's very helpful. Again, self-management is very important to have as an emotional IQ, part of the emotional IQ part of being successful in our social awareness. Boy, this is really good. The ability to, this is where the logical manager, goes into where I told you about sometimes they don't have social awareness, the empathy part, right? It's really important to empathize with others in your group, your coworkers or whatever. Again, understanding diverse backgrounds, understanding people's preferences, and not letting it get to you. I've had many situations where people were put in, they felt like they're being harassed because of their decisions they've made in life, right? And again, you'll face this in our industry. We're an entertainment industry. And so you'll have to face diversity in our industry. And the best way it is, make it sure it's a comfortable environment for everyone and be part of that culture, not a boys club culture. That's what you don't want to do. We have way too many white males in our business. It's time to accept diversity in our business. Relationship management is a really important one as well. Now, what is relationship management? Basically, it's your ability to build long-term, long-lasting relationships with your coworkers. I still talk to people I worked with 20, 25 years ago. Now, it's only a handful because most people got sane and went outside the games business, but I still talk to people because I formed that long-lasting relationship with them. Networking here is part of that, right? Go out, meet people. I sit at, for example, Mel's, and I meet something interesting every breakfast that I sit alone in Mel's. Someone comes up, we start talking, and it's like, holy crap, I didn't know, I worked with that group too, and so you have a conversation, now you have a friend, right? I met so many good people like that in the industry over the years at GDC. just by going to a bar or sitting at Mel's in a diner, and they sit by you and you just talk. That is really important. Even at work, by the way, looking at building relationships with your coworkers are important. Again, one other thing about relationship management is trust. This is why you see this big graphic here of someone helping someone up. You always do the trust thing where you stand behind someone and ask them to fall backwards, right? Implicit trust is important. Understand you're trusting your coworkers to do your job. If you're a manager, trust but verify. Don't over-manage someone, micromanage someone, right? This is a very important, that part of the relationship management is very important in my opinion. As you grow into, let's say, an individual contributor to a manager, one of the hardest things for a manager to do who was an individual contributor is to let go. Really hard to do. But you have to trust the people around you to do your job. That's key. If you don't trust your people, they will not make decisions for you. They will no longer make decisions. They will no longer take responsibility. They'll have you make all the decisions. It's something you don't want to do. It's a team effort to build these things. It's very important to have that ability. Why is this important? Well, it's real easy. Because when you get reviewed, they look at your hard skills, how you're doing, how you meet your, that's very, very important, how you get your work done, right? But one of the things, if you want to grow in a company, because they expect that at your level, you're getting hired or promoted at your level, that's what they expect, the hard skills. What they want to see also is how you're fitting in, how you play well with others, right? And it affects your rating. And if people who aren't that way, guess what happens? They get targeted. Every layoff that major companies have, like Sony or Bungie or anything, they're stack ranked. You're stack ranked with others. So when they do layoffs, that's what happens. So if you're not high in that layoff scheme, in that stack ranking scheme, and they have to let go of certain people, you will likely be targeted. So it's something to always think about. Why the soft skills I mentioned are important. Because you're going to have a lot of these moments. Trust me on this. I've had many of them and continue to have them. Again, one of the things about working in this business, I expect one a year or a couple a year to happen, right? We're in an entertainment business. It's crazy business. And always I find myself into, am I in the twilight zone? Or did something just happen I thought would never happen? But it does. Which, again, it's about managing stress. It's about managing emotion, managing yourself, being kind to yourself, right? Understanding when to take a break. There are people I know who don't want to go home and work all the time. I push them home. I make them go leave work. I make them stop thinking about it. It's not good for your mental health. Your mental health in this business is important. It's up to you guys to treat it that way because this industry can be tough. And so mental health is something always keep on your mind. It's important to you. It's important to you to succeed. Don't get caught up into what I call an emotional death spiral. It's not worth it. It really isn't. Life's too short. How I do this? I don't look backwards. I look forwards. When something happens to me, I say, okay, it's happened. Now, how do I move forward? How do I get out of it? How do I move forward out of this situation? Because looking forward helps you set the next adventure that you're going on, right? It's a great way to focus on moving this way versus always thinking about what they did to you in the past. You can get consumed by that. It's very, very easy to do. End result of this, you'll be a happy employee. You'll grow if you take these soft skills I talked to you about. You'll grow in your career in the gaming industry. You'll fit in. And you may not be targeted for the first round of layoffs if it's not closing a studio down. That's a different situation. These are some good books I recommend people look at and read. There's lots of very good soft skill books out there. I don't really focus on the hard skills. I assume everyone has them. If they're doing their jobs right, that's what I recommend you look at. This will be on the Vault, by the way, later, so you can get that. It's being recorded as well. So I'm going to go into giving some time to ask some questions. So who wants to ask questions? Anybody? Good. Turn on, hold on. He's getting it in a second. There you go.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. Really good talk. You said a lot about soft skills.
Yes.
I'm really happy about it because I agree with you. It's a very important thing. I've worked with hard people, and it's really hard to manage when you work with bad soft skills teammates. But I have a question. As someone who has already interviewed people, and I think you have been through lots of interviews too, how do you show off soft skills when you're trying to get to a company? Because like we don't have many opportunities to do so. It's just like an interview, a coding test, and something like that. How do you show off the soft skills?
Well, you show off your soft skills in interviewing, right? And you talk about, they'll give, a lot of times, depending on if you're being a manager or an individual contributor, they'll ask you questions. Well, how do you deal with this situation, right? I do scenarios. What my job is not to test the hard skills. My job is to see if they'll fit in, right, at my level. So I'll ask a lot of questions to try to figure out what your soft skills are, right? How you handle something. That's important.
All right.
Yeah, but you're right. There's no, references are a good one, right? That's where it'll come through.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, I was wondering, so you talked about layoffs, and you talked about in the game industry, and I know for a lot of people here, if we're not in the game industry, we're still going to be in the tech industry. You said there's a 90% chance of getting laid off in your first 5 years, getting laid off at least once. Is that just in the gaming sphere, or is that applied to the entire tech industry?
No, that's my experience in the gaming career. Just looking at all the resumes I've looked at, the average lifespan is 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else? Go.
Sorry. Hi, thanks for the talk. I joined a bit later. The question is it possible kind of to anticipate and predict, like not the recent layoffs, which is like market conditions, but like you're working in the company, you're doing the job, you're getting feedback, and you're feeling that you're doing it all right, but maybe there is like some red flags on the like management level, how they do presentations, what they're talking about, like either like a way to kind of feel that like the company is going in the wrong direction and act earlier.
Awesome. So he's asking, is there any way to kind of be the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, and basically to predicting when something is going to happen? One of the things I look for when I see a roadshow coming in with a lot of upper level execs coming to look at your company, look at your project, and they talk about how good things are, but they say we see you as family. There's no family here, by the way. That's a red flag to me. When they talk about not doing any layoffs, that's a red flag to me. That you can never promise someone not doing layoffs. But if you look at where insurance starts to get cut, like you get worse insurance than you have, or they don't do any more 401, your benefits start getting worse, that's a real big sign that things are not doing well. There are just little subtle things you have to look for, like I do, right? Do you see the management always stressed, or always having a bunch of closed door meetings, right? That's usually a good indicator too, by the way.
Do you advise to ask any question, like when you start seeing something like this, do you advise to ask like your manager or director or someone some hard questions at this time?
You can, but the problem is a lot of them really can't answer. If they answer the questions in a way that you feel like they are not quite answering the questions, that's a good one too. That's a real good one. So they don't come direct answers, but they try to camouflage what's going on or make it feel great, then that's a red flag.
Thank you.
So I was just wondering, okay, let's say you have a role or you just got hired into a role and you talked a lot about, the likelihood of being laid off. Do you recommend applying while you're employed, just at other companies, other opportunities? And if so, how long into a new role would you say you would wait before you start doing that? Because they'll
In a new role, I'm not a quitter. Personally, I don't really like leaving companies in a lurch, especially if they invested time in me and things like that. I'm pretty dedicated like that. But when I see things like, okay, insurance is, there's a lot of closed door meetings. When I ask those hard questions, they're trying to avoid the answers to it, right? That to me is an indicator that my spidey senses go up and say, I may be employed soon, unemployed, right? So I'm going to start looking now. Now, if someone calls you out of the blue, right, like a recruiter, and offers an opportunity that you have that's amazing, right? Yes, you started this job maybe a year ago, and there's an amazing opportunity, then that's up to you to decide what you want to do. But never, here's what I'm going to say, don't hurt your employer, right? Ask for, hey, I'm looking at this other opportunity, it's really great. At that point, you better have serious ability to have an offer letter to do that, right? But I would just be frank that you don't want to leave in a lurch, right? So you offer to have a start date that's more extended so you can help them make a transition. So don't burn your bridges is what I get. There's 1 degree separation in our business, by the way. I found that out myself. When I applied somewhere else and that person was working there, I said, oh, great. Oh, I know I didn't get in. So, yeah, it's just really be very careful about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are some ways to build up relationship when you're working remotely with it?
That's an awesome question. So one of the things I always like to do, and if you're working remotely, and there's depending on how they're distributed, like where the employees are, you may be able to go to somewhere and do something social. Like I would actually, if they're closer, to take a road trip. I always ask them, maybe want to do quarterlies, get-togethers, right, with different people. If there are people in your town that work with the same company, I always try to socialize that way as well. One thing that I always say is we get on Discord and play games together. Go to have a social space on Discord and with the other groups and talk about your interests, right? Or even have an interest set out in Discord or Slack. And just try to bond that way, right? Outside of work or even in work, right? That's what I would do. I encourage quarterlies, especially for fully remote studios, so that people can look to get to know each other, because that's trust building. Because it's hard to build trust when you don't see somebody, right? Or don't interact with them enough, right? That's one of the downsides of remote only, in my opinion, is that. Anybody else? You have a couple more minutes. Yes. How do you relate a soft skill to promotion? So a lot of times people will have job matrix, and if they've done it right, it should have hard skills and soft skills that you need to have, especially if you're on a management track versus an individual contributor track. Individual contributor track won't have as many of those soft skills, but the management track will. And so they should be able to tie your review to that, right? They should be able to do that or ask for it. Again, like I told you, there's not much out there to help steer you in your career guidance in a lot of companies. There just isn't, based on my experience. Yeah. Well, okay. I'll go get a little early. Thank you.